Holla holla, it's your boy George Billionaire, and as always, we are on our way to hustle hard. And in this life, we surely should hustle hard, because a mediocre average life is only determined by the things you do or don't do thereof. And I chose this path many years ago with the company I represent, which is Pro Air Conditioning. I was sick and tired of the job earning $300. I just had twins. Things were not adding up, and I decided to take a serious step of faith and begin a journey in entrepreneurship. Now, had I not started that journey, I can guarantee you probably wouldn't know me today. You probably wouldn't even know about Pro Air Conditioning and the amazing works they're doing around the country of Zimbabwe and beyond. I would have never started the various entity of things that I'm doing. I'm now sitting on boards. I'm now doing a lot of things because I chose what was hard so that my life would be easy. Now, I know that sounds very cliche, but in this life, as long as you are comfortable where you are never ever going to know the true potential or what you could have been. You're only going to know the life of going to work and coming home and just living hand to mouth, which I can guarantee you is not the best type of life to live. Now, in Hustle Hard, my core purpose and mandate is to provoke, inspire, and equip you through the lessons I have learned, through the journey I have traveled. It's one thing to be told by somebody who has walked the journey that you probably are currently walking now, and then now to see the extent of things I've managed to achieve simply because I chose to do what was uncomfortable when many were okay with being comfortable. Now, as we go on to the program today, I highly encourage you, take your notebook out. Don't write on your phone, write on a piece of paper. But not only just write, but make sure that you apply these pills of transformation, as it all begins in here. If you have a negative mindset which goes on to say, no, I was never born to be an entrepreneur, this is why I keep saying I relate with you. I used to have the same sentiments, that I was not born to be an entrepreneur. But one thing changed when I began to see what money can do, and especially if you manage it and make it multiply to become more. So tune in every single Monday, or go on Hustle Hard and type George Billionaire on YouTube to be able to see the various videos we've done over the years. I can tell you, if you just begin to watch one video, you will get addicted to them because they are so full of wisdom, of practical knowledge, which will transform you and change your life. It's been 4 years we're doing them. More than 100 videos for Hustle Hard, amongst the many other videos I do. I can tell you there are many who pay a lot of money to go to master classes to learn these things that you can just watch in the comfort of your home, on your phone, when you're in a plane traveling, because these will intrigue your mind and challenge you to become better. As we go into the studio today, make sure you click that like button, subscribe button, that notification icon, that every time we upload a video, that you definitely stay up to date with what's happening in my life and the amount of nuggets of wisdom we are sharing to the world. Holla holla, it's your boy George Billionaire. Let's go.
29 minutes before 1 is the time right here on Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. And George Billionaire is in the house. How are you, George?
Holla holla, it's your boy George Billionaire. As always, what an honor and a pleasure to be here on Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. The station to be tuned in every other day that gives you some amazing diversity of music, entertainment, knowledge, wisdom, so many things on this station. And here today on Hustle Hard, which is more empowerment of the mind, where we deliberately provoke, inspire, and equip you and all the listeners who've been listening to us on a Monday, so that you start your week charged up, so that you get some insights on life and you get to see how you can better yourself, your life, and ultimately change the way your life ultimately ends up.
Yes, sir. So how was your weekend?
Weekend was amazing, and I love soccer so much, and it's good. My European team, Manchester United, beat the people who always try and tell us that they walk alone, but this weekend definitely they were definitely walking alone. And it's good for Manchester United to be back in the European Championships next year. But on the local scene, with my team Scotland, unfortunately we faced our first defeat of the season. After 10 games, that was our very first defeat. But the league is still very much open. The difference between number 1 and number 5 is just 6, 7, 8 points. So it's not too much. It's too early to decide who's going to take the season. So that's it with soccer. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Mm-hmm. You never lose in anything that you do. You'll find when you go back into the drawing board. And I think for us as Scotland FC, definitely we learned a lot of things, especially as we're also preparing to go to CAF. There's a lot that we're learning to change our style of play, especially when we go and meet the big teams. So that was my weekend. Very eventful.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So today we have questions that came through from last week's conversation, right? From our listeners. The first one is from Chariro from Avondale. Hi, George Billionaire. Last week you spoke about teaching kids about money early. My son is only 4 years old. Is that too young to start? And what are simple ways I can introduce money concepts at that age?
Wow, that's great. So last week we were talking about financial literacy with our kids. Mm-hmm. And I spoke about, what I do with my kids at home, where they're now of a certain age, they're in their teens. During the school holidays, we're trying to promote a lifestyle that kids don't just get money to consume, and they understand that this money is kept and it is saved. And I mean, people can always go back and watch on the Capital page on my YouTube channel. That video is there. But at 4 years old, I think what's important, which I keep reiterating, is that your children as parents mimic exactly what you do. And if you have a very bad financial indiscipline, your children will also get into the same type of lifestyle that you have. Mm-hmm. So it's important as parents, don't tell your kids to read a book when they've never seen you reading a book, because they only mimic what you do. Mm-hmm. Don't tell your children to save money when they themselves have just seen you buying yourself whatever it is that you want. So I think I've always said this, that at the beginning of the year as a family, the Munengwa family, we sit down, we write down things we want, what we want to achieve. And everybody's got their, my kids, I think I mentioned last week that there's so many banks in the country now that you can actually open a bank account for your children. Instead of giving them cash, you can deposit it into their account and they can learn to manage it, because sooner than later we're becoming a very wireless economy. So it's good for them to understand that money comes, there's a certain percentage you can use to buy whatever you want. There's a certain percentage you save, and then depending on what Christian values you're from or what religion you're from, you also teach them to tithe at a young age. So I think it's important. There's nothing called too young. I gave the example last week of my dog at home, who can sit, who can greet, who can jump. So there's no age that is too young, because children learn from a very early age. So there's nothing called too young. Whenever they're going to church, begin to give them some money to put into the offering basket. They will understand. And this is why the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go. And that training begins from a very early age. Mm-hmm. Kids are so, they're like sponges. They absorb whatever it is that you train them to do. So there's no age they're too young. Always come up with amazing principles that our children can then pass on what you as parents taught them when they have their own families.
All right. I hope Terry has answered there. And then the next one is from Brian from Chitungiza. I've started giving my 10-year-old pocket money, but he spends it all immediately. Am I doing something wrong, or is that part of the learning process?
Well, brilliant question. And I think I've kind of answered it in what I just said. Because spending shows that maybe as parents, you have not instilled that which you have $10, right? $3, put it into your little piggy bank, right? $3, you can buy anything that you want. And this you put aside for either giving back or blessing other people. So if kids understand that a certain amount of money is not wholesomely to be consumed, they are going to do exactly what the person who gave them the money is doing. And I think this also goes up to now when you become adults, when you get your salary. Remember, one of my favorite quotes, failing to plan is planning to fail. So when you get $10 and you don't know what to do with it, you are the most dangerous person on earth, because chamuka inyama, whatever comes to your mind, be it a wig, a new car, a new phone, I want to go to Dubai, I want to travel, I want to buy this. Only after you make that decision do you then realize that, I had this money. But money gotten without having to work for it is like a bird. It carries wings and it flies away. So it's important that money is planned for. And I think the best example for this, we've heard so many times of people who win money at a lotto. They win $1 million. But remember what I've always said, money amplifies true character of individuals. Money, it magnifies the inner you. So if you are an individual who's worth $100 and you win $1 million, your money will come down to your level because you are failing to see what to do with that money. So when you are able to plan at a young age that when money comes, these are the deliberate things I need to prioritize with money, then I can tell you money will grow. But if you're somebody who just wakangubata mari, you are thinking of what I can use to consume, and you have nothing at all that you are doing to invest that money so it gives you more money, then I can tell you that true money is never going to come your way, because you lack that financial literacy of understanding that money is a tool which should be able to help you to multiply it. Money aingofarira munhu who just consumes. Sooner than later, money will depart you, and unfortunately you won't have much of it to be able to do the things that others who have money do with it.
All right. I hope you will answer the Brian. The next one is from Nyasha from Bordeaux. Auntie George, how do you teach kids the difference between needs and wants without making them feel like they are missing out compared to their friends?
Wow, okay, that's great. And I think I spoke about this last time, about I grew up in Glenora, and my parents took me to a private school across town in Bordeaux. And some of my friends had the latest shoes. In today's age, they'll have the latest phones. They'll have all these, they are dripping sauce. They are looking on point. And the way where your hair is not did, you are not looking, on point. But I think one of the most important things to train kids is that nothing material defines your value as an individual. Because there are so many people today, especially our generation, if you don't have this type of phone, if your parents don't drop you off in this type of car. I was one of those kids, Kudara. My dad worked for City of Harare, and there was a car, Yakanyorwa City of Harare, Department of Housing. It wasn't a very good looking car. And then, and people would ridicule me. But what my father taught me is that you need to be confident in who you are, because people's opinions do not define. So I think this is a conversation where we're at home, you are eating your basic meal, that today we're having rice, sadza, and vegetables, tomorrow we're having this, and this is according to what we can do and afford. So these conversations happen at a table, where you tell that, listen, in due time, we will also be able to go on holiday, but our holiday is not overseas. We are going to go to a local resort. And I keep saying this, that there's so much peer pressure in this day and age that as parents, it's important to have these sit down with your kids, because if you give your kids fish and you don't teach them how to catch their own fish, you are going to be in a very difficult place when they finish school and they are just used to receiving, because you trained them not to work hard for something. You never told them that, in this day and age, when you pass your O-level exams, parents can reward you by giving you something to say, well done, you passed. But there are some parents who at any occasion, if the child just says they want this, they give them. I can tell you those kids will not be able to be self-reliant without their parents. So I think it's important that let us live within our means, and these conversations begin at home. Let's not be peer pressured, because if we're peer pressured, ultimately we'll lose ourselves. Parents will go into serious financial debt. If your child is going to a school, as long as you're getting education, the most important thing, of course, there are many different types of schools. But the last time I checked, the school you went to after school does not matter.
It doesn't.
Whether you have O levels, A levels, you went to university, whether it was in whichever country in the world, you still have a degree and that qualification of education. I think the only difference, of course, is exposure. But I think as parents, let us teach these things at home and not have our kids try to pressurize us because of our lack of honest, truthful conversations of where financially we stand, not to impress the who's who.
All right. It is Hustle Hard. If you do have any questions, please send them on our WhatsApp number 0719 100 404. And the next one is coming from Memory from Kwadzana. And hello, Hustle Hard. I didn't grow up learning about money myself. How can I teach my children financial discipline when I'm still figuring it out too?
Wow, an amazing question. And thank God for this amazing program called Hustle Hard, because here there are so many people, and I think we've had so many reviews soon after we leave the show. Many people are always telling us, wow, thank you, I'm learning. There are so many various ways to learn in this modern day and age. There are financial literacy books, there are videos you can watch. There's so many, parenting ways of how to raise your children up financially sound. Growing up, we always used to read, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's so much content out there, which if we deliberately, because we were not taught financial literacy ourselves, we begin to teach our kids through what we learn ourselves. But I think one of the greatest challenges with us, thank God everybody in the studio here, I think next week we're going to do what book are we reading. I know everybody in the studio here is reading a book, and that's an amazing thing. But if you are not, Norma, please don't expose yourself, right? Everybody here is reading a book. And it's important that if you want to become something in life, you must become a reader, because a reader is a leader. So if you see yourself not self-educating yourself in the things you want to become, I can guarantee you won't become that. I've said this many a times. I've self-proclaimed myself to be George Billionaire. And the books I read have a different mindset of ordinary people. They are books that other billionaires read. And what that does, it changes even the way I think, the way I see things. So a book is an amazing way to learn. That if you begin to do that, my kids right now, they're on holiday. They are all reading books. It's a must. In our household, you must read a book during school holidays. It's a must. Whether it's a 80-page book, a 120-page book, but now it's become a custom and a lifestyle for us. So you find that when you have a conversation with them, it's different. So there's so many ways to learn. So I really encourage that, even times when I'm in the car and I'm driving, there are audio books. There's so many things you can do instead of just listening to music, which can upgrade your mental software so that you can become mentally sound, especially in this current time where everything is available to us because of internet and availability of resources.
All right, I'm sure you are getting a lot of help, my dear Pausas. And the next question is from Tinashe from Grindo. Tinashe says, is it a good idea to open a bank account for my child? Or should I wait until they are older? And how involved should they be in managing it?
Well, that's an amazing question. And I say this, I think with where we're going, if you open an account for your child, this is what will happen. I think last week I gave an example. If you give a child money and you ask them to keep it at home and they don't have somewhere to keep it safe, there is a high percentage of that money either disappearing, they don't know where it went, and ultimately they lose it. But if it's put in an account, you're training them at a young age to understand that, oh, money has a function. Because when you go out, and I've done it so many times with my kids, where we go somewhere and they see a toy worth $20, and they say, Dad, I want this toy. But then when I tell them, you don't need to buy this now, I actually saw this exact same toy for half that price, right? So you actually then are able to manage your kids on impulse buying, because they want it now, but after they buy it, then you see the exact same thing for half the price. Maybe because of location, they have saved a certain amount of money. So I think it's important that parents also teach their kids paper trail, managing money. When money is in the account, even for everybody listening, you spending it is different than you having cash. I know there are many people, when you have a certain amount of $1,000 in your pocket, there's just this, you want to spend. If you're at a restaurant and your bill comes, you've got this tendency, don't worry guys, I'll pay for it, because at that time you've got cash on you. But if it's in your bank account, there's a little level of discipline and financial management that you have. So I think it's important you train these kids, because even when they travel, wherever they go, still they are able to pay using their card. But I can tell you, they will be able to account for their money even as they grow, that when they make a purchase, a notification will come to show them how much is there, and there's no loss of money in any way. So I think it's very important, and we thank the amazing banks in the country who've really availed this opening accounts for kids. It used to be done back in the day. Mama Olenta knows about this. There was a red door. We used to be able to go and deposit money, and that used to help us save money back then.
Right door must be Beverly.
Yeah.
Turn in my bank book. Yeah, tell them about it.
Yeah, you
How much did I go POSB in my bank book?
Kind of name is founders. I don't know. What is that founders?
Yeah.
Hi, founders. Name Red Door, your Beverly, and then we also had I POSB. I'm not so sure, Sean. I'm not so sure.
My mom had a POSB one.
Yeah. But I mean,
No, yeah.
But I mean, that just helped being financially accountable for what you did with money, because you'd write down, what you're doing with this money in your little bank book. So it would really help you to be accountable for your own money, which was amazing back then. So it's good to see it coming back and trying to really encourage kids to bank money, because if you can bank your money at a young age, I can tell you financial discipline is already half a foot in.
Right. I'm sorry to take you back. You were talking about peer pressure that comes with children, maybe that you're trying to teach to save. And as a parent, I'm pretty sure if you're coming from a low, I don't want to say low, but who other side of someone, or someone other side of someone, who other side of someone, but for the child, it's kind of pressure. How do you, as a parent, sit down? Because I know my niece and I were the same age, and we dealt with situations where we learned at Group A schools throughout. And people at my high school still don't know that I stayed the other side of someone, because I never talked to that other side of someone, because all our friends were that side.
True.
We didn't like that. It's only when you're older that's when you start to realize, but no, they did us a good thing putting some private schools. But how do you sit down and talk to your child? Because everyone had the fancy stuff. No one understood why we were told with no phones until you're done with A-level. They were okay with it because they got that life.
Yeah.
So how do you sit down with your teenage? Because it's not only about my 10-year-olds. As 18-year-olds, we didn't get it. And they never had that conversation, but this is where we're coming from. We're trying to take you to Group A school so that you have a good future. They never sat down with us. How do you sit down as a parent and make your child understand where you are financially in order for them to not have the pressure that they see at school or around their friends?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing question. And I think especially with modern day kids, and I think, similar to you, I stayed in Glenora. When my friends' parents would say, can we come for a sleepover at your house?
We share a
we-
room.
no, I sleep in the lounge, share room. My parents were in one room, my sisters were in the other. Me and my brother Ignatius would sleep in the lounge.
Mm-hmm.
And if there were people who would come early in the morning, you quickly had to
Fix
the
lounge,
and make sure the lounge is available. But I think the most important thing that I learned from Glenora to the other side, because all my friends were dropped off in nice things. You know, when
They
you
had
see
their own cars,
when
actually.
you see what, you know, growing up, when I used to go to my friend's house, then you'd see what they'll have for dinner. You know, those are things we'd have on Christmas. Just Christmas, you know. But this was just ordinary. You know, but I think what it did for us was exposure.
True.
Was you
true.
got to experience
both
both
sides.
worlds.
Yeah.
But I think what's important now, because most of the parents now are parents who came from a very harsh life, and now they have arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And what they must instill in their kids is to understand that yes, we may have plenty resources, but you need to understand that yes, there may be the latest phone, there may be this car that's out, but parents should also, like I said earlier, train their kids to understand that something huge comes after you've done something. If you pass your certain things, I'll be able to do this for you, and it's within good reason, because lack of doing that is only preparing your children for disaster.
True.
Because children who are spoiled, I've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it with some of your friends who had the best of things in life. The moment their parents are taken off a cabinet position, they are no longer the CEO of a company, you know, business, or life happens, or there's an illness, and now all resources are dwindled. That's where reality will set in, because now they want to maintain a certain lifestyle,
True.
and they are failing to then cope up with life. And this is why you hear so many people take their lives, they go into depression, so many things, because they failed to adjust. But going back, I think it's important parents have this conversation around the dinner table that, listen, you're going to write your O-level exams. This is what I'm going to be able to do for you. And it's within good reason. You know, gone are the days where, you know, the peer pressure. You see so many of this on social media where people buy each other the latest, this, that, and the other. But we must be very realistic with our children. Say, you know what, that's what's happening next door.
But it's-
Yes, they bought a new car. Yes, they went on holiday. Yes, but with us, we are content with where we are. And little by little, sooner than later, you're going to see it. And I remember my dad, you know, I was young and I was like, my friends went to Europe, they went on this. But my dad managed to say, George, in due time, you're going to see where else, but we may not go overseas, but we will have a holiday. And what I love about our holidays, which are memorable, they were in the back of a Peugeot 504. We were at the back, cramped up as family. We had the most amazing memories with little resources. And those are the greatest memories. So I think as parents, let's be very wise in making sure that over holidays like this, in a couple of weeks, school is opening. Don't break the bank trying to look cool, have an expensive party for your kids, live outside your means, and then come school fees time, you are not able to pay for your kids for the basics that they should. So I think we must, as parents, be real with our kids. You know, kuana kwakasiyana.
True.
You know, we all have different streams of income, but we must be able to express that this is where we are. This is the phone I can afford for you. This is the basic car I can bless you with. And I think we take it from there, and our kids will have a hard working ethic to then be able to say, listen, my parents did this. I also need to work hard to be able to buy some of these things that I'm demanding from my parents by myself.
Because we have a few minutes left, I'm going to ask the last question from Simba from Headfield. Should children be rewarded with money for chores, or does that create the wrong mindset about responsibility?
I think it's two-way. It's not chores. I've got kids, and during the school holiday, they come to work. And because they come to work, we incentivize them to actually fall in love with what we do and actually stay away from just surfing the internet and being unproductive. So they come and work. And anybody, even yourself, if you do something, you want to have something. So it's not good, we're training up our kids the wrong way. I think if you look at all other cultures, they've got that system where if you do a little work, my friends would tell me that over the holiday, my white friends who I went to school with, they'll go on a tractor and they'll plow 10 acres of land and they'll be paid X amount. And because of that, they enjoy doing that. And now from school, they've also become farmers. So it's the same thing with entrepreneurial parents who are out there. If you do that for your kids, instead of leaving them at home watching TV and being unproductive, bring them to work. Ask them, if you do this, that, if you do the garden, we'll get X amount. That way it creates a work ethic. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. And all it will do is encourage our kids to understand that there's something called work. And when you work, you get rewarded. And I think that's one thing we really need to instill, especially with our modern day children who do not have that element. They are used to just getting the fish without being shown that, no, for me to catch this fish, I was in a boat for 8 hours. I caught a weed, I caught this, until finally I got a fish. But kids just get without being taught how to actually catch themselves. And this is what most people then never end up leaving a generational legacy and wealth, because they didn't do these small little things to train up a child in all aspects, in life, in working hard, and ultimately in how to use money.
Nice. Thank you so much for all that you taught us today. Any last words still on teaching our kids financial literacy?
Yeah, lastly, I just want to say today, the 4th of May, is my daughter Giovanna's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I want to wish my amazing daughter.
Is that the last one?
Yeah.
Oh, she's so cute.
So, in the next week, I've got 3 birthdays.
Oh my.
On the 4th, the 6th, and the 9th.
Yeah, this
Three
Giovanna is
birthdays
too
this
young.
week.
So
Yeah.
Financially, it's like 9 months before me.
Yeah. It's called, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So it was good planning done. But I just want to say happy birthday to Giovanna and Gabriel and Gianna. But I think as parents out there, we need to be very deliberate.
You're going to do a lot.
You are going through a lot this
Yeah,
week.
but I say it's so important as parents, especially out there, train up your children. Don't be too busy with life and with work, and you forget to train them up. There's nothing wrong with taking your kids to work for them to experience and understand what it is you're doing. The more you do that, the more exposure they will get to appreciating what is called life and what is called work.
All right. Thank you so much. That's all we had today on Hustle Hard. It is 1 o'clock on Capital 100.4 FM. To stand by for the news.